My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the coffee pot. Not from age, mind you, but from something I couldn't quite name yet. The kitchen felt peaceful in that golden afternoon light, everything in its proper place. 43 years I'd lived in this house on the south side of Chicago, and I still loved these quiet moments. The coffee percolated with its familiar rhythm while I arranged my favorite mug on the granite counter. Simple pleasures had become more precious since retirement from teaching. Then the phone rang. Angela's name glowed on the caller ID. My grip tightened around the ceramic handle before I even answered. "Hey, Mom." Her voice carried that particular tone, the one she'd used since childhood when she wanted something expensive. "Hello, sweetheart." I kept my voice neutral, though my stomach was already knotting. "How are things? If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you." "Well, that's why I'm calling." Angela cleared her throat, and I could picture her pacing in her cluttered living room. "We need $8,000 for the cruise tickets. Everything's already booked. Deposits paid. The travel agent needs the rest by Monday." I set my coffee mug down harder than necessary. A few drops splashed onto the counter. "Angela, you're 42 years old, a grown woman with a job and a family. Pay for your own vacation. How can you say that?" Her voice shot up an octave, that familiar whine creeping in. "We're your family. This is supposed to be a celebration. Your retirement, quality time together, and you're worried about money." I walked to the living room window, staring out at my carefully maintained lawn. Mr. Henderson next door was pruning his roses, normal people doing normal things, while my daughter demanded thousands of dollars like it was pocket change. "I'll pay for Lily's ticket," I said firmly. "She's 10 years old. She shouldn't suffer because her parents can't budget properly." "Mom, come on." Now she sounded desperate, which somehow made it worse. "We're talking about a family trip here. 7 days in the Caribbean. When's the next time we'll all be together like this?" "Angela, I've helped you more times than I can count. The house down payment, your wedding, that car repair last year. When does it end? This is different. This is about family memories. No, the word came out sharper than I intended. This is about you expecting me to fund your lifestyle while you spend money you don't have. I'll transfer Lily's portion to the travel agent directly. You and Marcus figure out your own situation." The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if she'd hung up. "Fine," she finally said, her voice cold as winter. "But don't blame me when this ruins everything. Don't blame me when Lily asks why Grandma wouldn't let her parents come on the family cruise." The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I stood there holding the dead phone, staring at it like it might explain how my generous, loving daughter had become this manipulative stranger. The afternoon sunlight still streamed through the kitchen window, but something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't just another request for help. This felt different. The sound of car doors slamming made me look up from my dinner plate. Through the dining room window, I could see Angela's dented sedan in my driveway, its engine still ticking as it cooled. My stomach dropped. They were coming to finish what the phone call had started. I heard Angela's key in the front door. The spare I'd given her years ago when Lily was born, back when trust came easier. The lock clicked and they walked in without knocking. No courtesy, no respect for boundaries, just an entitled invasion of my private space. "Dorothy, we need to talk." Marcus appeared first, his expression tight. He'd always been smooth, the kind of man who could sell ice to an Eskimo. Angela followed behind him, her makeup slightly smudged, hands trembling just enough to be noticeable. She'd been crying, or wanted me to think she had. Marcus didn't sit. Instead, he paced around my living room like he owned it, picking up family photos and setting them down carelessly. At 45, he still had the athletic build from his college days, though his midsection had thickened considerably. "Please sit down." I gestured toward the chairs, trying to maintain some semblance of normal hospitality, even as they violated every boundary I had. Angela perched on the edge of my leather armchair, ready to spring up at any moment. Her designer purse, which probably cost more than most people's car payments, was clutched in her lap like a shield. "Dorothy, I need you to understand something." Her voice cracked perfectly, tears gathering in her brown eyes. "We're not asking for vacation money. We're drowning." Marcus stopped pacing directly in front of my couch, his presence filling the space. The power dynamic was clear and intentional. "We owe $50,000, Angela continued, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue she'd pulled from nowhere. "Credit cards, loans, a second mortgage. Marcus's commission structure got cut last year, and we got behind. 50,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. How did you let it get that bad? It doesn't matter how, Marcus snapped, his voice sharp. What matters is fixing it. We can consolidate everything with a personal loan, but we need collateral. Your signature on the application, and the $8,000 for the cruise fits into this plan. How exactly? Angela's jaw tightened. Because we need this trip, Mom, as a family, to show Lily that everything's okay, that we're not falling apart. She's been asking questions about why Mommy cries so much. Marcus's voice dropped lower, more threatening. Besides, if we can't afford to go, maybe Lily should stay home too. Wouldn't want her to feel guilty about going on vacation while her parents lose their house. The manipulation was so blatant, so cruel, that for a moment I couldn't speak, using my granddaughter as a weapon against me. Don't you dare, I said quietly. Use that little girl as leverage. But they had already won, and we all knew it. I couldn't bear the thought of Lily suffering because of her parents' failures, couldn't stand the idea of her missing out on something that should be pure joy. I walked across the room to my desk, each step feeling like surrender. The checkbook sat in the top drawer, where it always did. My hand shook slightly as I wrote out the amount, $8,000. This is the absolute last time, I said as I tore off the check. Do you understand me? The last time I bail you out? Marcus snatched the check before I'd finished speaking, barely glancing at the amount before folding it into his wallet. Thanks, Dorothy. Really, this means everything. Bafta was already walking toward the door. Angela closed behind him. No gratitude, no genuine relief, just the satisfaction of getting what they'd come for. The front door closed behind them with a soft click. I stood alone in my living room, staring at the empty checkbook in my hands. The house felt violated, contaminated by their desperation and my own weakness. Outside, their sedan roared to life and pulled away. $8,000 for 7 days at sea with people who saw me as nothing more than an ATM. With a pulse that each step up the stairs felt heavier than usual, not from physical exhaustion, though my legs certainly felt the weight of 68 years more acutely tonight. The emotional toll of the day's confrontations had settled into my bones like winter cold. I pulled my old leather suitcase from the bedroom closet, the one my late husband William and I had used for our honeymoon in Italy 45 years ago. The brass clasps still worked perfectly, though the leather showed its age in gentle creases and worn corners. Packing had always been methodical for me. Blouses folded just so, slacks hung to avoid wrinkles, toiletries arranged by size. Tonight, though, my hands moved automatically while my mind wandered down darker paths. When had Angela become so entitled? When had my help transformed from generous assistance into expected tribute? I opened my dresser drawer to grab stockings and accidentally pulled out the file folder underneath, the one where I kept important financial documents. Bank statements and receipts scattered across my bed like evidence of some crime. The house down payment receipt stared up at me. $200,000, 5 years ago, when Angela claimed she'd found the perfect starter home for her family. Just need help with the down payment, Mom. We'll handle the monthly payments ourselves. Underneath that, the wedding expenses. $30,000 for what Marcus called a modest ceremony at the country club. Another $15,000 for their honeymoon in France. We want to start our marriage right, Angela had explained. No stress, no debt hanging over us. Car repair bills. $8,000 when Angela's transmission died 3 years ago. I can't get to work without a car, Mom. I'll pay you back as soon as the insurance check comes through. The insurance check never came. I sat on the edge of my bed, surrounded by the paper trails of my own foolishness. 27 years of emergencies, and just this once requests. Each one seemed reasonable at the time. Each one came with promises of repayment that never materialized. My calculator sat on the nightstand, old habit from my teaching days. Always double-check the numbers. I punched in the figures with growing disbelief. 200,000, 30,000, 15,000, 8,000. Smaller amounts over the years, car insurance, medical bills, Christmas gifts that turned into Christmas loans. The total climbed past $280,000, nearly $300,000 over Angela's adult life. The number stared back at me from the calculator's green display, each digit a reminder of my own weakness. I'd worked 40 years as a teacher, building that nest egg, saved and invested and planned for retirement, only to watch my daughter treat it like her personal piggy bank. A photograph of Lily had fallen from the folder. Last Christmas morning, her gap-toothed smile, bright as she opened presents. She'd hugged me so tight that day, whispered I love you, Grandma in my ear, while Angela and Marcus argued about whose turn it was to do dishes. That little girl deserved better than parents who used her as emotional leverage. She deserved a grandmother strong enough to protect her from their dysfunction. I gathered the documents and returned them to the folder, then resumed packing with renewed purpose. 7 days at sea lay ahead, 7 days with my granddaughter, watching her discover the wonder of ocean sunsets and tropical islands. Whatever else happened on that cruise, I was determined to give Lily memories worth treasuring. When I sat down in the cramped middle seat of Angela's car the next day to get to the port, it felt like a cage, but Lily's presence next to me made it bearable. She was waiting on the porch when their dented sedan pulled into my driveway, holding a worn paperback copy of The Secret Garden and practically trembling with excitement. "Grandma, look what I brought to read on the ship." She held up the book, its pages soft from countless readings. "Frances Hodgson Burnett is my favorite author. Do you think they have a library on board?" "I'm sure they do, sweetheart." I helped her adjust the seatbelt around her small frame, careful not to meet Angela's eyes in the rearview mirror. The tension from last night's confrontation still crackled between us like electricity before a storm. Marcus twisted in the passenger seat, adjusting his mirror to watch our interaction. Every few seconds, he'd catch my eye in the reflection and offer a cold smile that never reached his carefully composed features. "Look, Grandma." Lily pressed her face against the window as we merged onto the highway toward Miami. "The buildings are getting taller. It's like we're driving into a forest made of glass and steel." Her wonder was infectious. Despite everything, I found myself smiling genuinely for the first time since Angela's phone call yesterday. Children see magic where adults see only concrete, and commerce. Traffic thickened as we approached the cruise terminal. Marcus's knuckles were white against the steering wheel, his jaw muscle twitching every time someone cut us off. The weight of yesterday's $8,000 check seemed to press down on all of us differently. A burden for me, resentment for them, calculation in their eyes. "Money can buy many things," Marcus said suddenly, his voice sugar-sweet but with razors underneath. "But it can't buy genuine affection, can it, Dorothy?" The comment hit its target perfectly. He wanted me to know that he saw through my relationship with Lily, wanted to plant seeds of doubt about my granddaughter's love. "I love Grandma anyway." Lily's voice rang clear and indignant. "She's the best grandmother in the whole world, and money has nothing to do with it." My heart swelled with fierce protectiveness. This innocent child shouldn't have to defend our relationship against her own stepfather's jealousy. "That's right, sweetheart. You're my most precious treasure, worth more than all the gold in the world." Angela's grip tightened on the wheel. In the mirror, I watched her expression darken as she realized her daughter's loyalty couldn't be manipulated or purchased. It simply existed, pure and unconditional. The salt smell of the harbor began filtering through the car's ventilation system. Lily bounced in her seat as the first glimpse of cruise ship smokestacks rose like white towers against the morning sky. The contrast between her pure joy and their barely contained anger made my chest tight with foreboding. The relief of stepping out of that suffocating sedan felt like emerging from a cave into sunlight. My legs appreciated the stretch after 90 minutes of tension and cramped positioning. Around us, the Miami cruise terminal buzzed with excited families wheeling luggage and pointing cameras at everything. But nothing could have prepared me for the first glimpse of the ocean majesty through the terminal's floor-to-ceiling windows. The ship rose 15 stories above the harbor, its white hull gleaming like fresh snow against the blue April sky. Elegant balconies dotted its length like jewelry on a grande dame's dress. At the top, multiple swimming pools sparkled in the morning sun, while tiny figures moved about the decks. "Grandma, it's not a ship, it's a floating palace." Lily grabbed my hand, her paperback forgotten in her other grip. Angela and Marcus approached with our luggage, their expressions mixing awe with something harder to define. Marcus's eyes kept calculating costs, the marble lobby visible through the windows, the uniformed staff greeting passengers, the obvious luxury of every detail. The security checkpoints separated us briefly. I was directed to a shorter priority line. As I passed my bag through the scanner, a man behind me grumbled loud enough for me to hear. "Of course, Gold Card gets you everything." I turned to see a man my age, maybe a few years older, with a weathered face and cynical eyes. He wore a rumpled linen jacket and had the look of someone who had seen too much of the world to be impressed by any of it. He gave me a curt nod, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Williams, a crisp steward in a brilliant white uniform, greeted us at the entrance. Dorothy Williams, party of 4, that's correct. Wonderful. Mrs. Dorothy Williams, you have the Ocean View Suite on deck 8, starboard side. Mrs. Angela Davis, your interior stateroom is on deck 5. He handed us different colored key cards. The class distinction was subtle but unmistakable. My suite versus their interior cabin, my gold-edged card versus their plain white one. The elevator ride separated us. When Lily and I reached deck 8, she gasped at the wide corridors, the artwork, the subtle luxury of everything. My suite door opened onto a sitting area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, but the real treasure was the private balcony. Grandma, come see this. Lily had discovered the sliding door and stepped outside. We can see the whole harbor from here. Look, there's a cruise ship leaving. It's waving goodbye to us. I joined her, breathing in the salt air. For the first time since Angela's phone call, I felt genuinely peaceful. Here, surrounded by ocean and possibility, the weight of family drama seemed lighter. The main dining room, at lunch, buzzed with the excited chatter of 3,000 passengers beginning their adventure. Normal people enjoying normal vacations without the undercurrent of financial manipulation that poisoned every interaction with my daughter. Lily had discovered the Kids Club, a wonderland of video games and supervised activities that left her speechless with joy. I found a quiet corner in the ship's library. The leather chairs faced panoramic ocean views, and the gentle sway of the ship created a hypnotic rhythm that made reading feel like meditation. No phone calls demanding money, no guilt trips, just the endless horizon and a well-crafted mystery novel. The pool deck in the late afternoon was a revelation. Lily splashed in the shallow end while I supervised from a cushioned deck chair, marveling at the engineering required to create this floating resort. I hadn't realized how much stress I'd been carrying until it began lifting from my shoulders like morning fog. Grandma, guess what I learned today? Lily burst into the tea service area, still damp from the pool and glowing with excitement. They have a rock climbing wall that goes up 6 stories. And tonight there's a Broadway show. And tomorrow we can go snorkeling in Bermuda. Her enthusiasm was infectious. Despite everything, Angela's manipulation, Marcus's jealousy, the financial pressure, this moment was perfect. My granddaughter's joy, the peaceful rhythm of the ship, the promise of a week focused entirely on creating happy memories. As evening approached, I settled into a deck chair, finally allowing myself to truly relax. The mystery novel lay open in my lap while gentle ocean swells rocked the massive ship like a cradle. Other passengers strolled past, pointing cameras at the horizon where the sun touched the water. This was peace. This was what I'd worked 40 years to earn. Then I heard running footsteps. Grandma. Lily's voice cracked with panic as she burst onto the upper deck, her face flushed and tear-streaked. She stumbled between deck chairs, frantically scanning the crowd until her eyes found mine. My book tumbled to the deck as I stood, immediately alarmed by her terror. In 10 years, I'd never seen my granddaughter look so frightened. Princess, what's wrong? I pulled her close, feeling her small body trembling against my chest. What happened? She glanced over her shoulder toward the ship's interior, then whispered urgently in my ear, "We have to get away from here right now. Grandma, they're going to hurt you tonight." My blood went cold. Who's going to hurt me? Lily, you need to tell me exactly what you heard. Mom and Marcus. Her voice was barely audible, muffled against my shoulder. I went back to get my book from their room, and I heard them talking through the bathroom door. They said they're going to put something in your drink at dinner, something to make you sleepy. She couldn't finish the sentence, but her meaning hit me like a physical blow. My own daughter planning to murder me. Are you absolutely certain about what you heard? My voice stayed calm, even as my mind reeled with the impossibility of it. My own child planning too. They said you'd be drowsy and they'd take you up to the deck for fresh air. But really, they were going to push you over the railing when nobody was looking. The words rushed out of her in a terrified whisper. They said it would look like an accident, an old woman losing her balance. The deck seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Angela and Marcus planning my death with the casual efficiency of planning a grocery list. Listen to me carefully, Princess. I held her shoulders, looking directly into her frightened eyes. You did exactly the right thing telling me. You're incredibly brave, and now we're going to handle this together. But what if they see us talking? What if they know I heard them? They won't. We're going to be very smart about this. My mind was already racing. First, you're going to the kids' club for movie night. Stay there until I come get you. Don't go back to their cabin alone. What about you? Grandma. What if they tried to give you the drink anyway? Let me worry about that. I managed what I hoped was a reassuring smile. Sometimes the best way to catch someone in a trap is to let them think it's working. 90 minutes later, I sat alone at a corner table in the ship's elegant bar, pretending to study the dinner menu. The Ocean View Lounge buzzed with pre-dinner cocktails, crystal glasses catching the soft amber lighting. I'd positioned myself with my back to the wall, a clear view of all entrances. My phone lay beside the menu, voice recorder app ready, though the screen appeared dark. Across the room, I saw the cynical man from the security line, Arthur. I'd heard someone call him. He was playing cards with another passenger, but his eyes occasionally flicked in my direction, sharp and assessing. Dorothy. Angela's voice carried across the lounge with false heartiness. There you are, Mom. We've been looking everywhere. They approached with practiced smiles. Angela in her best vacation dress, Marcus in pressed linen pants and a polo shirt, but I could see the calculation behind their eyes now, the predatory assessment I'd been blind to for years. Mind if we join you? Marcus slid into the chair across from me without waiting for an answer. We thought it would be nice to have drinks together before dinner, like a proper family vacation. Absolutely, Angela signaled the bartender with an authoritative wave. 3 cosmopolitans, please, Grey Goose vodka, just like my mom always orders. The bartender nodded, but something in Angela's tone made my skin crawl. Too specific, too insistent. I'd never been particular about vodka brands, and Angela knew it. I saw Arthur glance up from his cards, his gaze lingering on Marcus for a moment. Actually, I said casually, closing the menu, I'm feeling a bit queasy from the ship's motion today. Think I'll skip alcohol and stick to ginger ale. Angela's smile faltered. Come on, Mom, one cosmopolitan won't hurt. We're celebrating our family time together. The last family time we might have, Marcus added with what he probably thought was meaningful sentiment. Who knows when we'll all be together like this again. Thanks, but my stomach's been bothering me since lunch. I gestured toward my midsection. Digestive systems aren't what they used to be at my age. You two go ahead and enjoy yourselves. Marcus's jaw tightened. Dorothy, it's one drink, for family harmony. The pressure in his voice was unmistakable now. He needed me to drink that cosmopolitan. He needed it desperately. How about this instead? I stood up, pulling out my wallet. Dinner's on me tonight. Both of you, order whatever you want. Celebrate properly. I'm going to walk off this nausea and meet you in the dining room. Before they could protest, I left enough cash on the table to cover their drinks and walked toward the lounge exit. Behind me, I heard Marcus's frustrated sigh and Angela's sharp whisper, she's being difficult. As I left, my eyes met Arthur's. He gave me a slow, deliberate nod, as if confirming a suspicion of his own. I didn't go to the dining room. Instead, I took a long, circuitous route to Deck 5. My mind was racing. They knew I was suspicious. The cosmopolitan gambit had failed, and now they would be planning something else. I had to know what. As I approached the corridor where their interior cabin was located, I heard raised voices. It was Angela and Marcus. The door to their stateroom was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. I slowed my pace, feigning a stumble, and leaned against the opposite wall, as if to catch my breath. I can't do this. Marcus. Angela's voice was high-pitched, hysterical. He's on the ship. I saw him near the casino. Keep your voice down. Marcus hissed. You want someone to hear you. We just have to get him the money. That's all he wants. All he wants. He threatened to throw us overboard if we don't have it by tomorrow night. We need my mother's help. We have to make her understand how serious this is. A lone shark on the ship. The story was so outlandish, yet delivered with such convincing panic. Could Lily have misunderstood? Could their desperation be about a debt, not about my inheritance? A cold knot of guilt formed in my stomach. Had I misjudged them so horribly? Your mother won't listen to reason. Marcus's voice was heavy with despair. She thinks we're just irresponsible. She doesn't know what real trouble is. If we don't get that money, I don't know what will happen to us, Angie, or to Lily. The performance was masterful. I pushed myself off the wall and walked away. My footsteps heavy with confusion and a dawning sense of shame. They weren't murderers. They were just fools in over their heads, terrified of a criminal. I found Marcus an hour later on the promenade deck, staring out at the dark water. He looked up as I approached, his face a mask of weary resignation. Dorothy, I guess you heard. I heard an argument, I said, my voice softer than it had been in days. I heard fear. What's going on? Who is this man? Marcus let out a long, shuddering breath. He ran a hand through his hair. It's a guy. A lender. I borrowed money a few months ago to cover some business losses. I thought I could pay it back quickly. The interest rates they got out of control. So the 50,000, it's for him. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. He followed us onto the ship. He told us he sees this cruise as his payment deadline. He said if we don't give him cash by the time we reach Bermuda, he'll collect his debt another way. It almost made sense. It explained the desperation, the pressure, but something felt wrong. Why didn't you just tell me this, Marcus? Why the lies? Shame, Dorothy, he said, his voice cracking. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to know how badly I'd failed. I thought if I could just get the cruise money, I could use it to buy us some time, to show him we were serious. He looked at me then, his eyes pleading. The drink at the bar, that wasn't for you. It was for me. I was going to drug myself, let him beat me up, and then you'd see how serious it was, and you'd have to help. The lie was audacious, almost brilliant in its self-pitying logic, but one detail snagged in my mind. A loan shark who takes credit cards for cruise deposits. I asked quietly. You said everything was booked, deposits paid. Marcus's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, a flicker of panic. He recovered quickly. I used one of his cards. It's complicated. Part of the debt. But the slip was enough. The lie was too elaborate, the details too neat. The shame in his eyes wasn't real. It was a performance. And I had almost fallen for it. The guilt I'd felt moments ago curdled back into cold suspicion. I made my excuses and left him on the deck. I walked back to deck 5, my heart pounding a slow, heavy rhythm. They thought they had me. They thought their little play had worked. Now they would feel safe to discuss their real plan. I waited until I was sure they were both back inside. I activated the voice recorder on my phone, setting it to record. I approached their door, my hand trembling slightly. A service cart with used towels and dishes was sitting a few doors down. Perfect. I pushed the cart quietly until it was just past their door. I slipped my phone into a pile of rumpled napkins on the bottom shelf, the tiny microphone pointing toward their cabin. Then I walked away, my steps echoing in the empty corridor. 20 minutes later, I retrieved the phone. I went to a deserted lounge, put in my earbuds, and pressed play. The first few minutes were muffled sounds. Then their voices came through, clear and chilling. She bought it, Angela said, a triumphant hiss in her voice. The loan shark story. She looked like a kicked puppy. I told you it would work, Marcus said. She's so predictable, always wants to be the hero. So the plan is back on for tonight, Angela asked. No. She's too suspicious now. She refused the drink. We have to be more direct. Tonight, during her usual deck walk, you know she always takes that stroll around 10 to look at the stars. What do you mean, more direct? My hands shook slightly as I held the phone. Push her over. Marcus's voice was barely audible. It's the only way now. Make it look like she slipped on the wet deck. Tragic accident. Elderly woman loses her balance. The insurance will pay out, and will inherit everything within 6 months. I'd heard enough, more than enough. Back in my suite, I replayed the recording 3 times. Each playback made the reality more horrifying. My daughter's voice discussing my murder with the same tone she might use to plan a grocery shopping trip. The next morning, the harbor pilot boat guided us through the coral reefs surrounding Hamilton. I stood at the ship's rail, watching Bermuda's pink sand beaches and pastel houses grow larger. My escape bag sat hidden behind a life preserver rack, packed with essentials and the recorded evidence of my daughter's murder plot. 14 hours had passed since I'd learned the truth. 14 hours of sleepless planning, pacing my suite, while Angela and Marcus presumably slept peacefully, confident their victim was back on their side. I could walk off this ship, catch a flight, and let the police handle it. Grum. Lily's voice rang out across the deck as she ran toward me, dressed for a shore excursion. Isn't it beautiful? Look at the water. It's like swimming in liquid jewels. Her excitement stopped me cold. Princess, I need to handle some business matters on shore. Boring grown-up stuff. You go with your parents and have fun. The lie tasted bitter. Her face fell immediately. But you promised we'd go snorkeling together. You said you'd show me how to find conch shells. I know, sweetheart, but sometimes no. The word exploded from her with surprising force. Grandma, please don't leave me alone with them. Please don't go. Something in her tone made me look at her more carefully. Fear. the same terror I'd seen when she'd first warned me. "They'll hurt you if I'm not here to stop them," she whispered, grabbing my hand. "And if you leave, who's going to protect me?" The question hit me like a physical blow. In my desperation to save myself, I'd forgotten the most important truth. Lily would remain trapped on this ship with two people who'd already proven they were capable of murder. People who might decide a 10-year-old witness was too dangerous to keep alive. My escape bag suddenly felt like a coward's solution. "You're right, Princess." I knelt down to her eye level. "I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together, remember." Angela and Marcus emerged, dressed for their own shore excursion. They spotted us near the gangway and exchanged a meaningful glance. "Not going ashore, Mom?" Angela asked with forced cheerfulness. "Changed my mind. Think I'll enjoy the ship's amenities while it's less crowded." Another glance passed between them. They were recalculating, adjusting their plans. As they walked down the gangway, I made my decision. I wasn't running, I was fighting. I dialed the ship's security office, my voice firm. "I need to speak with your chief about a serious security matter." I was heading toward the elevators to meet him when a voice stopped me. "Got a minute, Mrs. Williams?" It was Arthur, the cynical man from the bar. He was leaning against a railing, a half-smoked cigar in his hand. "The name's Arthur Vance. We haven't been properly introduced." "I'm in a hurry," I said, starting to move past him. "I bet you are," he said, his voice low. "Your son-in-law is a terrible liar, by the way, and your daughter is worse." I stopped dead. "What do you know about it?" "I know I spent 30 years as a senior fraud investigator for Prudential," he said, taking a puff of his cigar. "You learn to spot the tells. The sweat on that boy's upper lip, the way your daughter's smile never quite reaches her eyes, and the way she talks on the phone when she thinks no one's listening." My blood ran cold. "What did you hear?" "I was on my balcony this morning," Arthur said, his eyes fixed on mine. She was on hers. Bad connection, I guess. Because she was practically shouting, talking to some financial advisor, asking a whole lot of very specific, very hypothetical questions about life insurance policies, about accidental death clauses, about how long it takes to process a claim for a person declared lost at sea. The corroboration hit me with the force of a wave. It wasn't just my word against theirs anymore. It wasn't just a little girl's story. This was proof. Hard, professional, undeniable proof. "I'm on my way to see the captain now," I said, my voice filled with a new resolve. Arthur nodded slowly. "Thought you might be. You need a witness, Mrs. Williams. You know where to find me. Deck 7, poker room. And for what it's worth," he added quietly, "good luck." Armed with Arthur's information and my own recording, I walked to the captain's quarters with purpose. The evidence would either save my life or make me look like a delusional old woman, but now I had a professional investigator on my side. "Captain Johnson," I said, knocking on the private quarters adjacent to the bridge. "Dorothy Williams from Suite 8. I need to discuss a serious passenger safety matter." The captain was a weathered man in his 50s, with the kind of steady, gray eyes that had seen everything the ocean could throw at a ship. He gestured me toward a leather chair, clearly expecting a minor complaint. I placed my phone on his desk and pressed play. Marcus's recorded voice filled the small cabin. "Push her over. Insurance will pay out." Captain Johnson's expression transformed from polite attention to sharp focus. He listened to the entire recording twice. "Mrs. Williams, are you telling me your own daughter is planning to kill you on my ship?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. And I have a witness. Arthur Vance, a retired insurance investigator, is also on board. He overheard my daughter discussing my life insurance policy this morning." The captain reached for his radio. "Security to captain's quarters. Officer Smith, priority 1. Security Chief Michael Smith arrived within 3 minutes. Mid-30s, alert, with the bearing of someone who took passenger safety seriously." The captain played the recording again while I explained the entire situation. "Mom, this is attempted murder conspiracy," Officer Smith said grimly. "We should contact authorities immediately." "No," the word came out sharper than I intended. "If you arrest them now, Lily loses her parents. She's 10 years old. She needs them, even if I couldn't finish the sentence." "Then, what do you propose?" the captain asked. "Tonight, I take my usual walk on the upper deck," I said, my plan solidifying. "They'll come from me just like they planned. But this time, you'll be ready." "Mrs. Williams, you're asking us to use you as bait." Smith frowned. "That's extremely dangerous. I'm 68 years old, Officer, I can't outrun them or overpower them, but I can outsmart them. With your backup, we can catch them in the act and end this without destroying my granddaughter's life. At 11:25 p.m., I stood at my cabin mirror, checking my appearance one final time, gray hair combed, cardigan buttoned, the picture of a harmless old woman taking a contemplative evening stroll. The emergency whistle felt cold against my palm as I slipped it into my pocket and headed for the upper deck. The deck stretched empty under starlight, ocean waves lapping against the ship's hull 15 stories below. I positioned myself at the predetermined spot along the starboard rail. To any observer, I appeared completely alone and vulnerable. But Officer Smith waited in the shadows near the lifeboat station, with 2 additional security personnel positioned at strategic points. Mom. Angela's voice emerged from the darkness, artificially concerned. What are you doing out here so late? I turned slowly. Both Angela and Marcus approached, dressed in dark clothing. Couldn't sleep, I replied calmly. Sometimes the ocean helps clear my mind. You should be more careful walking alone at night, Marcus added, moving to position himself between me and the deck entrance. The rails can be slippery. Balance isn't what it used to be, is it? Angela said, stepping closer. They were flanking me now, one on each side, gradually backing me toward the ship's rail. The choreography was smooth, practiced. Actually, my balance is fine, I said, straightening to my full height, just like my hearing was fine when I overheard your conversation about pushing me overboard. Angela's face went white in the starlight. What are you talking about? I know everything, I said quietly. The poison in the Cosmopolitan, the lone shark lie, the plan to make my death look accidental. I even know about the 15-minute window when security patrol changes shifts. You're delusional, Marcus snapped, but his eyes darted nervously around the empty deck. Angela lunged, her hands grabbing my arms. Her grip was surprisingly strong, fueled by desperation. The emergency whistle shrieked across the deck as I pressed it to my lips. Security, security, I shouted as Angela wrestled for control. Shut up, Angela hissed, trying to clamp her hand over my mouth. Nobody's coming to help you. That's when Officer Smith stepped out of the shadows. Step away from Mrs. Williams immediately. 2 additional security officers appeared from opposite sides of the deck, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Angela released my arm so quickly I almost stumbled. This isn't what it looks like, Marcus said quickly. We were just trying to help her get back inside safely by forcing her toward the ship's rail. Officer Smith's voice was professionally calm. Turn around and put your hands behind your backs. This is entrapment, Angela protested as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Enough, my voice cut through their protests. You tried to kill me for money. Lily saved my life because she loves me. The only trick here was believing you still had souls worth saving. 45 minutes later, I sat in the ship's security office giving my formal statement. Through the thin wall, I could hear Angela's angry protests alternating with Marcus's calculating attempts to negotiate. Mrs. Williams, Officer Smith looked up from his report. We'll need to contact authorities at our next port. Nassau police will want to interview everyone involved. No. The word surprised even me. I thought about Lily, asleep in her bunk, innocent of all this. Officer Smith, what would happen to my granddaughter if her parents are arrested and imprisoned? She'd likely be placed in protective services until family arrangements could be made. She's 10 years old. She's been through enough trauma without losing her parents to prison. I leaned forward. What alternatives do we have? Officer Smith frowned. Captain Johnson has the authority to confine passengers to quarters for the remainder of the voyage. But attempted murder is a serious crime. Mrs. Williams, they failed, I said. I'm alive and unharmed. Sometimes justice is about prevention rather than punishment. I stood up slowly, feeling every one of my 68 years, confine them to their cabin for the rest of the cruise, ban them from any shared spaces. I just want to enjoy 3 more days with my granddaughter before we return to port. The next morning brought crystalline Caribbean waters and sunshine. I found Lily at the kids' club breakfast buffet, chattering excitedly with new friends. Grandma, she ran to hug me. Can we go snorkeling today? The activity director says the reef here has fish. Absolutely, princess. Just you and me today. What about Mom and Marcus? Are they still feeling sick? I knelt down, choosing my words carefully. They need to rest in their cabin for a few days. Doctor's orders. But that means we get extra adventure time together. Her face lit up with the pure happiness that only children can feel. Just us. Really, just us. The remaining 3 days of our cruise became exactly what I'd hoped for. Precious time with my granddaughter, watching her discover tropical fish and coral gardens, teaching her shop, reading together in the library. Angela and Marcus remained confined to their interior cabin, isolated from the joy and beauty surrounding them. On our final morning, as the Miami skyline appeared on the horizon, Lily and I stood at the ship's rail. "Grandma, this was the best vacation ever," she said, leaning against my side. "Even better than I imagined. For me, too, sweetheart, for me too." As the ship docked, I kept one hand on Lily's shoulder and one eye on the security officers escorting Angela and Marcus to a separate exit. They would face their own consequences in their own time. The little girl beside me would grow up knowing her grandmother had chosen love over vengeance, mercy over justice. Sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when not to destroy your enemies, but simply to ensure they can never hurt the people you love. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.